of us hear these numbers thrown around so casually that our minds grow numb and we cease to grasp what they really imply. Millions, billions, and trillions begin to sound alike, but they aren't. 1,000,000 seconds is 12 days. 1,000,000,000 seconds is 32 years. 1,000,000,000,000 seconds is 32,000 years. To put it another way, a person making $50,000 a year will earn $1 million in 20 years. At that rate, it will take 20,000 years to earn $1 billion. At 50 grand a year, you'll rack up $1 trillion in 20 million years. Think about that. Now, on top of that, the government doesn't even know how the money is being spent. The banks and the Treasury Department won't tell the government how they spent the money. In February 2009, the Congressional Oversight Panel, or COP, reported that the Fed paid $254 billion for assets worth only $176 billion. Now, if you're keeping score, that was a $78 billion overpay. In other words, $78 billion that was simply stolen outright. How long would it take you to earn $78 billion? At 50 grand a year, it will only take 1,560,000 years, more or less. Of course, since you're a taxpayer, I suppose that technically you are paying that bill. The second round of the quantitative easing is equally secretive and equally pointless if the intention is to put more money into circulation. The banks are sitting on more than $1 trillion in cash that they're unwilling to loan until the situation stabilizes. Adding the extra money into circulation won't loosen up the banking system's cash reserves or stabilize the situation. It will only serve to trigger inflation, which is precisely what the Federal Reserve intends to do. Printing more money cuts the value of existing currency. The latest 700 billion plus could cause the value of the dollar to fall by 20%. Monetary easing leads to an artificial weakening of the dollar versus the major currencies. A less valuable dollar makes U.S. goods cheaper on the international market, but it also causes prices here at home to rise. Devaluing the dollar through quantitative easing automatically results in price increase on all imported goods that Americans consume by eroding the purchasing power of each American family. This time around, the debate will not be about the price of oil, gasoline, gold, or silver, all of which have risen as the value of the dollar plummets. This time around, it will be about the price of a quart of milk and a loaf of bread. As long as the faucet of monetary easing continues to flow freely to suppress the long-term interest rates and make borrowing cheaper, the price of natural commodities will continue to rise, especially for meat, dairy, and grain products. The question won't be whether you can afford gas for your car to go to the grocery store, but whether or not you can afford the groceries when you get there. Quantitative easing does not encourage consumer spending, nor does it lead to economic recovery. It never has, and it never will. There's a growing movement in America to abolish the Federal Reserve System. Its most visible leader is Congressman Ron Paul of Texas. The idea would be to restore confidence in the U.S. dollar by reverting back to a border economy. Unfortunately, reversing the process would be like trying to turn a pickle back into a cucumber. Our entire economy is built on an illusion. The free market global economy of the 21st century is backed by faith, not by wealth. Faith in America's ability to outperform other national economies, faith in the fact America will not go into default on its debt, faith that America's national debt will grow together with the amount of interest we pay on that debt, since debt is the basis of our economic system. The stability of the American economy is central to a global economic system. That's a given. So when there's a hiccup on Wall Street, Every main street in the global village rushes to blow up a brown paper bag. If America were a barter economy, one where its currency is backed by precious metals, then the money supply would be finite. In other words, you can't make $2 out of a $1 worth of gold. Unless more gold is found, there could be no new money. But the money trust is a conspiracy that exists primarily for the benefit of those bankers who control it. So that probably won't happen. And another problem, replacing it means we have to start over from scratch. You know, the best place to hide anything, especially a conspiracy, is right there in plain sight. The best way to hide the money trust conspiracy is to suggest an alternate conspiracy. Maybe you've noticed a lot of the Jewish names among the banking families that own the Fed. By advancing the idea that it's a Jewish conspiracy, the bankers' conspiracy is effectively cloaked, or at least sufficiently muddied. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion is a text that was introduced in Russia around 1903. Its plotline foreshadows the existing money trust, but adds the specter of a Jewish conspiracy to dominate the world. It is purportedly the minutes of a clandestine meeting of world Jewish leaders in the 19th century to concoct plans for global domination. The Protocols describes their plan to subvert the morals of the non-Jewish world, to control the world's economies, to control the press, and ultimately to take over the world. Wait a minute. Doesn't that sound like Jekyll Island? The text was debunked by the New York Times in 1921. But because there is an historical Jewish banking family among the Gentile banking families actually behind all the events I outlined earlier, the Jewish conspiracy angle has just enough intrigue in it to be plausible. So whenever the subject of money trust comes up, so do the protocols. Only the extremists on both sides usually care to discuss it further. And being extremist, they're dismissed as extremist out of hand by those in the center who refuse to talk about it for fear of being labeled an extremist or anti-Semite. As a result, nobody talks about the Rothschilds, the money trust, or the Federal Reserve, or for fear of attracting those false labels. So the money trust remains hidden in plain sight. It does exist, but it's hidden among so many different versions that the exact truth is known to only a few. We know what it was, but nobody is exactly sure what it is at the moment. The Bible tells us what it will be. According to prophecy, the Antichrist will seize control of an existing global economy. It must already exist because he has only 7 years in which to govern. It'll be in trouble, but it will exist. It must be global. Revelation chapter 13, verse 17 says, he will exercise economic power over the whole earth. And it must be already centralized in order for him to seize it. The money trust isn't even a conspiracy anymore. It has gone way beyond that. It's a completed system constructed over a period of hundreds of years upon which now we depend for our continued existence as we know it. We rely on it to feed our families. We depend on it to keep them healthy. We depend on it to keep them healthy. We feed the world system by our labor and then plow whatever we can save back into it to feed it some more. We're enslaved by it on every level, and its power over each of us is both merciless and absolute. We can rail against it, shake our fist at it, but we can't change it and hope to survive the process. Eerily, President Andrew Jackson foresaw this back in 1832, almost a century before the Federal Reserve even existed. In his veto of the Charter for the Bank of the United States, he wrote, "But if any private citizen or public functionary should interpose to curtail its power or prevent a renewal of its privileges, it cannot be doubted that he would be made to feel its influence." We can deny the money trust exists, but we still go to work for it, pay taxes to it, and exist within its framework. You can call it the money trust, or you can call it, as the Bible does, the world system. You can even pretend it doesn't exist, but it does. And it isn't going anywhere. I'll be back after this message. Here on the Hal Lindsey Report, I try to inform you about the raging battles for the soul and future of these United States. The ferocity of the attacks against your heritage and our liberties as Christians and Americans is almost unbelievable. But you won't hear about this in the mainstream media. That's why I need your help to spread the word each week. Keep the Hal Lindsey Report on the air by sending your tax-deductible gifts to Hal Lindsey Media Ministries, P.O. Box 470470, Tulsa, Oklahoma, 74147. You can also support the program by visiting my website, hallindsey.com, or simply phone toll-free 1-888-RAPTURE. You know, the time has come when we need to follow what Jesus said, when he said, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Lord his God." And on another occasion he said, "What shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" You know, the most important thing is to know that you have entered God's forever family. Make sure that you've received the gift of pardon that Jesus Christ came and paid the penalty for to give you freely. Receive him into your heart. And on the other hand, when you know him, claim the promise when God said, "I'll supply all of your needs according to my riches and glory in Christ Jesus." Tough times are coming, but God will never forsake his children. Keep trusting him, because it's only in him that I believe we'll be able to really survive and endure the hard times that are coming. We're heading right up to the last days, and I believe the time has come to not be panicked, but to believe the promises of God and realize that the Lord is coming very soon for all of us who have come to believe in Jesus Christ and received his gift of pardon. Well, that's it for tonight. God bless you. And next week, I'll be back, God willing.
You've been watching the Hal Lindsey Report. To support this program, send your tax-deductible gift to Hal Lindsey Media Ministries, P.O. Box 470470, Tulsa, Oklahoma 74147. You can also support this ministry online. Visit hallindsey.com or call 1-888-RAPTURE.